So commercial banks create credit. The central bank, the Federal Reserve, creates money. So only the U.S. government, with its bank, Federal Reserve, can create money. No other entity can create money. Banks can create credit, but not money. So all the money that exists started with the government. The government didn't have to get it from somewhere, because where would it get it from? The government's what creates the money in the first place. There's a lot of confusion on this. Even our leaders don't seem to understand it.
Well, we're out of money now.
The national debt in a very short period of time is going to be $21 trillion. We are mortgaging our future. We're mortgaging our children's future.
But what does that mean? How is that going to come back to hurt the kids? How?
Well, because we are going to have to pay this money back at some point, and at some point it's going to be impossible. You know, I've always heard and read a lot on it and understand it and went to Wharton and all of that stuff. I've always heard that $24 trillion we become Greece. And to a certain extent, we're getting to be a large-scale version of Greece.
Well, we're out of money now.
This is as serious a debate that we can have in the Congress of the United States because it affects our children and their future, because the deficits have gotten so far out of hand.
Well, we're out of money now.
We're out of money. We're mortgaging our children's future. We're headed down the path of Greece. All these statements are completely and flatly untrue, totally incorrect. So it shows that the leaders of our country do not understand how our system works. It is impossible for the U.S. government to run out of money. It can't happen. There can never be a day when a government check bounces. Not going to happen. It cannot happen, because if the government runs out of money, it can just make more. All the money that exists, the government created. It came into existence by the government spending into the economy, and it can't be paid back. If we paid back the entire federal debt, that would mean that we're going to give back all the money that the government created. So that would leave no money in the system at all. So in other words, to pay back the federal debt would take all money that exists. It's absurd. We have to have money in the system. Money serves a purpose. That's the reason the government creates money, so that we can use it for goods and services. And the only question is how much money in the system is optimal for the well-being of the country. And how should the government spend money into the economy? Is the way it's spending money into the economy now optimal? Or is it not optimal? Is it helping only a few people at the top, or is it helping everyone? It is critical to understand that it is spending that creates income. So if Fred stops spending, then Wilma doesn't get her income. And then she can't buy as much, and so Betty gets less income, and it goes around and around. And so that, for example, if we start trying to balance the budget and pay down the debt, we're going to be pulling money out of the economy. So that means that there is less money in the economy for people to spend. So people's income goes down, and they won't be able to buy as much. So it becomes a vicious cycle. Talking about debt is a bit silly. The only reason the government has a debt is because it chooses to have a debt. It could just spend the money without borrowing. It doesn't have to borrow. In fact, the whole borrowing thing is a bit absurd. Who are they borrowing from? They're borrowing from us. So a better way to look at the debt, which is held in U.S. Treasuries, is just a savings account. It's sort of the United States consumers have their pensions and their savings, much of it locked up in U.S. Treasuries. In summary, we are not leaving a debt burden to our children any more than the high debt incurred during World War II adversely impacted Americans during the 40s and 50s. It did not. Government can create money at will out of nothing. That's where money comes from. It cannot run out of money because it can always create more. It does, however, have a constraint. It cannot just spend as much as it wants. That constraint is how the spending affects the economy, in particular inflation. But generally speaking, demand-induced inflation is only a problem when the economy is running at full capacity and unemployment is effectively zero. So if everyone is working full-time, or if everyone is working as much as they want to work, and we are at full productive capacity, that's when additional spending into the economy by the government is a problem and can cause inflation. Up until then, it's not. So if a politician says we can't do some work, which would obviously be in the public good because there isn't sufficient money, you know that's only true if we are at full production capacity. So if the unemployment rate is not effectively zero, then that's a lie, because that means that there's still unused capacity in the economy. If there are people who want to work and there is work to be done, then inserting more money into the economy is not going to be inflationary. The people who worry about inflation are people who already have money, the wealthy. Of course, they don't want the government spending any more money into the economy on any risk of inflation, because that devalues the money that they are hoarding. Of course, inflation matters. The government should not be increasing inflation, and inflation is a constraint. Government should not spend if it's going to be inflationary. But if there is flexibility in the economy, if people are unemployed, people who want to work are unemployed, there's more room for added production. So spending money into the economy to put those people to work will not be inflationary. Until you get to full capacity, the government can spend into the economy. Indeed, that should be the goal. Unemployment and underemployment are worse than inflation. They're worse than any perceived problems of a national debt. It is really the worst thing. The government needs to make sure that it is stimulating the economy sufficiently such that everyone is employed. And actually, the way we do it now is very inefficient. That is that we're just creating more money, hoping that businesses or banks will lend it and that businesses will invest it into more production and hire more workers. Yes, it kind of works, but it's a blunt instrument. It doesn't work that well. A better solution is a fiscal policy where the government spends directly on employment so that we create a reserve of labor. That is, that the government will provide a job of last resort. And I don't mean just digging holes and filling them back in, but productive jobs, things that need to be done. We certainly need to have our infrastructure fixed up. There are many things that need to be done. You walk around any town in the country and you can see things that could be done that would improve the society that the market is not addressing. So there's all work, all productive work that can be done. And if there are people who are unemployed, it makes economic sense to hire them, to put them to work so that they are earning a living, they are productive, they are improving the country with the work that they do, and it serves as a buffer so that as the economy goes through its ups and downs, that during a downturn, people will turn to the job of last resort provided by the federal government, managed locally, but funded by the federal government. And so that no one ever has to worry about sinking into destitution. Government will always provide a basic minimum wage job with basic benefits such that you can live. You can live out of poverty. You have enough money to have your basic needs met. Then as the economy recovers and the private business wants to hire more people, it will turn to people who have been working all along. So they're not chronically unemployed. They're used to going to work. They're used to showing up every day. They're in the work habit. They're a better pool of labor for the private sector. Also, when people are unemployed, there's no reason why the government shouldn't provide jobs that offer some kind of training opportunities. They can learn on the job. And then once the business cycle picks up again, they will have new skills and be better able to serve the private sector. We have to decide what kind of government we want, what kind of society we want. And I think it should be a society based on fairness. If people are unemployed and we're keeping them unemployed just for the sake of keeping inflation down, that is not fair to them. It's like people want to work, they want to participate in the economy, and there isn't enough work to go around. That can be solved. The government can unilaterally solve that problem by creating jobs. That is a federally funded jobs program. That is a job of last resort. In the future, I'd like to go into more detail on some of the things discussed in this video, such as the federal guaranteed jobs program, which I think would make for a more just, fair, and better society. This video was an experiment for me. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click like and let me know in the comments below. I'll consider making more. Thank you.